forget that classic scene from E.T. when a young Drew Barrymore melted all of our hearts when she met E.T. there for the first time. That's the movie that put her on the map, a star and only 7 years old. But being in the spotlight so young came with pressure and a path that wasn't always easy. Drinking, drugs, even a few stays in rehab before she got herself clean. But ever since then, she's been on a roll, both personally and professionally. Drew seemed in a really reflective mood when she sat down with Willie, opening up about those tough early years, what it's like to be a mom now, and her latest adventure on the small screen. She's the star of Santa Clarita Diet, playing Sheila, whose diet is, let's call it, unusual.
So let's talk about Santa Clarita Diet.
Okay.
When they came to you with the show, I wonder what your reaction was, because on paper you go, this is sort of a suburban comedy.
Right.
But she eats human beings.
I can cook that meat for you, sweetheart.
I'm fine. I just think there's a bewitched element to the show where they're living in a house but crazy things are going on, and then it has more of like a Dexterish gore factor in it.
You only ate some of him?
He weighed like 180 pounds.
Ah.
Were you looking for TV?
No, I had actually stopped acting for several years because I wanted to raise my kids, but then a shift happened in my life and I was separating from their father. I definitely personally was in a very dark and fearful place, and then this script came along and I was like, yeah, I don't think this is a good time. And ironically, I think it taught me a valuable life lesson, which was sometimes when you think something is the worst timing and the worst idea, it can actually become a thing that saves you.
The Santa Clarita Diet is the latest chapter in the lifelong Hollywood story of 43-year-old Drew Barrymore, which began with a little girl doing commercials.
They can even make you smile on a cold, rainy day.
Barrymore appeared in her first commercial at just 11 months old. She comes from a long line of actors on the Barrymore side. But early on, that name did not get her very far.
I was a kid who stood in an unemployment line with my mom. She was very poor, and so was I, and the whole Barrymore name was, you know, had ceased to exist for a long time, and we got no special treatment. I worked during the day, she worked during the night, and I'm so glad that happened to me. And it's one of the things I'm concerned about with my kids is hard times make better people. And I'm like, interesting, what are your life lessons going to be?
Where's your adversity?
Yeah, where is your adversity?
With her father long out of the picture, Drew and her mother Jade struggled along until the 6-year-old won a part in a now iconic movie starring an extraterrestrial.
Here he is!
Where's who?
But I think you killed him already.
Do you remember what that did to your life?
Yeah, it's trippy, man. But it was, you know, if I was like a normal kid and my mom put me to bed every night, then maybe it would just seem like a job. But my mom wasn't that kind of person, and we were much more like Chaplin and the Kid. We were hitting the nightclubs and traveling the world, and it was a crazy life. Like when my kids, you know, I don't know, figure out some of the things I did in my childhood, I'm like, yeah, and that makes me all the more insightful to when you're pulling crap on me. So I was born for teenage girls. You're my karma, and don't worry, I know everything you're up to.
Barrymore was a child in an adult's world. She was drinking by 9 and using drugs not long after that. At age 14, she was legally emancipated from her parents and moved into a Los Angeles apartment alone.
I knew nothing of domesticity. There were like spores and science projects growing in my refrigerator. I had to master laundry. I didn't have a car.
And you were 14.
I was 14.
To fight her professional image as a cute little girl, Barrymore chose roles that fed the bad girl reputation, earned by appearances like this one on David Letterman in 1995.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about it. It was just, again, I'm like sort of an act first, think later person, especially at 19 or whatever I was.
And so you said that was sort of a turning point for you. How so?
Well, I think that I was like doing films like the Amy Fisher Story and Bad Girls and Poison Ivy, and because it was my mental execution of how am I going to help people not see me as a child anymore?
Right.
And then by the time I was like 19, I was like, nah, I'm done with that chapter. And I had found that script ever after.
Why do you like to irritate me so?
Why do you rise to the occasion?
It was the greatest lesson of my life because it was about demure capability and a woman rescuing herself rather than waiting to be rescued. And that, for me, felt just organically inside myself of the woman I wanted to become.
With the 1998 movie Ever After, the 23-year-old began a career renaissance. She teamed with best friend and producing partner Nancy Javonen and ran off a string of hits from Never Been Kissed.
Hey, feeling good.
To Charlie's Angels.
Buddha on Lotus.
And Fever Pitch, where Drew introduced Nancy to her future husband, Jimmy Fallon.
Nan was always great at finding the story. She'd be like, dude, Sony's making Charlie's Angels and there's no one on it and like, we got to do this. And I was like, I'm in the middle of lunch and you're literally giving me an ulcer because now all I want to do is throw the lunch aside and figure out how we make Charlie's Angels. And I knew I wanted to make it a film that was really tongue-in-cheek with capable girls, girls who had sisterhood. I never want to make a movie about women tearing their hair apart. Like, yuck.
Barrymore is guided by that positivity. She forgave her father and was at his bedside in his final days. She supports her mother to this day. And Drew is giving a different kind of childhood to her girls, 5-year-old Olive and 3-year-old Frankie.
I'll never take the tone with them of work is bad, my past was bad, life is bad. This is the adventure and journey we're on. But you have to be nice and safe. Yeah.
That's your slogan.
When I ask them, I'm like, what's the 2 most important things? They're like, safety and kindness. And I'm like, that's right, girls, here we go.
Do you have ideas of things you haven't done? You've been a producer, a star, you've done everything. Is there other avenues you want to explore?
I don't know. I could see myself like being like, that's it at 50, and that's only 7 years away, but I'll have worked 50 years. Isn't that time for the gold watch and a see ya?
Thankfully, Drew is not retiring anytime soon. If anything, she is busier than ever. She has a cosmetics line called Flower Beauty and a clothing line, Dear Drew. Santa Clarita Diet Season 2 is now streaming on Netflix. To hear how Drew made peace with her parents and what she thinks of that famous Johnny Carson interview she did at the age of 7, check out our web extras at today.com/Sunday.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.